The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is the NRLW Wrap for the week that was round number 6. Now, unfortunately, I'm not joined by Kiana Takarangi this week. She will be back on deck next week. A few commitments having to do today, so unfortunately haven't caught up with her. So hopefully next week Kiana will be back on deck and we can go through round number 7, but this is round number 6, and the way it stands at the moment, the Sharks, they had a big win over the Gold Coast Titans up there at Cbus Super Stadium. And look, the Sharkies, they are on fire. They lead the NRLW with 6 wins from 6 games, and they are on 12 points, and they are flying at the moment. And to this game, as I said, they had a big win over the Gold Coast Titans, 22 points to 6. Tiana Penatani scoring the first try there. Taylor Preston kicking 3 out of 4 goals. It was 10-6 at half-time, so it was still anybody's game. But the Sharkies, they ran away with it in that second half. And from what I saw of this game, I watched a little bit of it at the Parramatta Leagues Club whilst I was waiting to go across to CommBank Stadium for the Eels and Dragons NRLW game. The Titans, they just never really could get back into that game in that second half. They made a few mistakes, and I think that the Sharks, they really capitalised on that. And Anessa Biddle, who won the centre for the Sharks, she scored the last try in the 67th minute. One of my favourite players in the NRLW, to be honest, as well. Look, the Sharkies, they had more possession than the Titans, which really helps. A better completion rate, so errors from the Titans is 14 to 10, so errors really hurt the Titans. And so I think the Sharks, they are just playing some really good footy at the moment, outstanding, and would definitely go in as one of the premiership favourites in this NRLW. Just the way that they're playing as a team, they're getting it all right. They're not afraid to throw the ball around, coming up with some really good results. Now, as I mentioned, I was at CommBank Stadium for the NRLW game between the Eels and the Dragons. Now, unfortunately, the Eels got beaten 42 points to 14. Not a good thing to happen in front of your home fans. The first game at CommBank Stadium for this year. Look, it was 14-8 at half-time, so the Eels were still in with a chance, but that second half, Tegan Berry, she got a double, just really led the Dragons well, and they got the win, 42 points to 14. An injury to Kennedy Charrington in the second half, I think it was, not too good for her. Hopefully she can recover pretty well. I don't know if it's a season-ending injury at the moment. I believe it's an ankle or a knee. So let's hope that it is not too bad. Let's hope that he's back for the Blue and Golds. Her sister Ruben is out for the season, unfortunately, from that round 1 game up in Brisbane. So it will be a big blow if Kennedy is out for the year as well. The Eels, they have been playing some good footy this year. They slipped now to 6th spot on the ladder, 3 wins this year out of 6 games. They have had a better year than last year, where they only won 1 game. But unfortunately, the last couple of weeks, they have lost against Newcastle and also now the Dragons, who got their 2nd win of the year, and they sit on 4 points in 8th position on the ladder. So they will hopefully want to win some more games and see if they can sneak into that top 8 position. But the Parramatta Eels, they take on the Gold Coast Titans, who, as I mentioned just before, lost that game last week. So last weekend. So they are both on 6 points. So the winner of that game will go to 8 points and no doubt a jumper position as well. So that game is on at Eric Tweedale Stadium. So check that one. I think it's on 12:45 on the 1:45 next Sunday. So just back to that first game that will be that was played between the Sharks and the Titans, where the Sharks got the win. They set up a clash with the Roosters, so one of the other premiership heavyweights in this side. They play on Sunday at 12 p.m. at PointsBet Stadium. So the next game that happened on the first game that happened on the Sunday, and it was up at McDonald Jones Stadium, the Knights and the Tigers. And look, the Newcastle Knights, they were on a mission. They had the win against Parramatta the previous week. Sheridan Gallagher, she got a couple of tries and also kicked 3 out of 7. Look, for the poor old Tigers, it was 26-0 at half time. They haven't, unfortunately, won a game this year. Ebony Pryor was the only try scorer for them on the weekend. They are just really struggling, whereas the Newcastle Knights, they look like they are coming back into form. They now sit in 4th spot on the NRLW ladder. 3rd spot, just ahead of the Roosters. So they had a couple of losses in a row, and now they had a couple of wins in a row. So they are getting their season back on track and looking to defend their title. But for the poor old Tigers, they haven't won a game this year. They are on the bottom of the ladder. They have had a lot of injuries to key players. Kezi Apps is one of those, and they just haven't been getting the results. They were close a few weeks ago against Parramatta, but they were never in this game against the Knights at home, where they have a good following. 7 tries to 1, unfortunately, and the Tigers, unfortunately, another loss. So only a 67% completion rate in that clash. That's never going to help you, although the Newcastle Knights was only 72%, but it was the errors that the Tigers made. 10 penalties conceded, a lot of 6 on reports, 1 sin binning as well. So unfortunately the Tigers sit on that bottom of the ladder, and hopefully they can get a win against the Cowboys this week. And the Newcastle Knights, they play the Brisbane Broncos, who sit in 2nd spot, just above them in this competition. So that should be a cracker of a game as well, a top 4 game. Speaking of the Broncos, they played the next game against the Cowboys. Now, I didn't get to see much of this game, unfortunately, but the Broncos won 38 points to 12. 8 tries to 2, 3 conversions to Romy Teitzel. Kira Dibb kicked a couple of goals for the Cowboys. Jakaya Whitfield, Tiana Rapstrand-Smith scored tries for the Cowboys. 18-12 at half-time. And another game that we see a close encounter at half-time, but then just the second halves of some teams, which is probably reminds me of the Parramatta Eels in the men's game. But big scores get put on these sides. So 20-0 in that second half to the Broncos. And look, they are warming nicely. They sit in second position on 8 points, 4 wins now out of 6 games. They lost their first 2, but have won their last 4. And they are a champion team, the Brisbane Broncos. They have got some really quality players like your Gail Broughton, Ali Brigginshaw at halfback and captain. How good is she? She will probably become a immortal one day. Not an immortal, sorry, a Hall of Fame player. Well, you never know. Could be a female immortal. You never know one day, but definitely be a Hall of Fame player from the women's game for sure. Done everything. Won premierships, won Origin series, played for Australia, Gillaroos, done everything. So champion player Ali Brigginshaw is. So look, the Broncos, they won their first couple of premierships in the NRLW. And obviously Newcastle have taken over that mantle of the successful team winning back-to-back premierships, but I wouldn't count out the Broncos for this year's title either. The next game that was played was between the Roosters and the Raiders. That was the final game of round number 6, and the Roosters, they got away with this 34 points to 20. Now, this game was 16-10 at half-time, but the Raiders, they led early, and they led early 10-0, and looked like they were in full control of this game. Unfortunately, though, the Roosters, they got going. Maya Wood scored a double. Jocelyn Kelleher kicked 5 out of 6. Amber Hall got another try as well. It was 6 tries to 4 to the Roosters. But as I said, the Raiders, they were really into this. They were winning 10-0, and then it was 10-6. And unfortunately, the Roosters got the lead into half-time, 16 points to 10. And the Roosters never looked back. But this was a really good game to watch. I think one player that in this game that was really good for the Raiders was Grace Kemp. Some great runs off the back fence. Mackenzie Wiki scored a great try. Reminded me of her dad, Ruben Wiki, in the centres for Canberra. A great try there. Madison Bartlett scored the second try for the Raiders. She's one of the top try scorers in the NRLW. I think it's 20 tries now she has scored in the NRLW. Could be more. If it is, please let me know. But is definitely in the top 5 all-time try scorers of the NRLW. So knows how to get across the line there. But it wasn't the Raiders' night. The Roosters held on for victory. Now, they set up a clash with the Cronulla Sharks, so that should be a good game there. The Roosters and Knights, second favourites to the Sharks now, according to the bookies, but this should be an interesting game. The Sharks and the Roosters, two of the, as I said, competition favourites going into this season of NRLW. Now, round 7 next week looks this way. Kicks off on Saturday at 11 a.m. The Cowboys taking on the West Tigers. That game is on at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. 11 a.m. on Saturday. The next game on the Saturday, the second game, is the Dragons versus the Raiders. Now, I think this could be a double header at Cogra Oval, Netstrata Jubilee Stadium as it's called, as I do believe that the Dragons and Raiders in the NRL are playing at 3 p.m, I think, on this day, Saturday. So get out there if you're Dragons and Raiders fans. Get out there, watch a couple of games of rugby league, one men's, one women's game. But the Dragons in 8th, the Raiders in 9th now, which is a little bit disappointing for them as they've been there and thereabouts in games, but just haven't been able to clinch victories. They've only had the one win this year. The Dragons, have, as I said before, have had 2. So, look, there's a very limited time to go in this competition. So, if you want to get into that top 4, it's time to start winning every single game now, especially if you're down the bottom of the ladder. So, this should be a good game. The next game that we'll see is on the Sunday, and that is the Sharks and Roosters. Now, this game, 12 p.m, is being played at PointsBet Stadium, the home ground of the Sharks. And in the NRL, this game, the Sharks play on Sunday at Manly anyway, but this is the home ground of the Sharks. So bit of hometown support for you Sharkies fans to get down there. As I said, this should attract a big crowd. 12 p.m. on a Sunday. Hopefully the sun will be shining. First versus fourth. If you look at the Sharks, as I said, they've won they've won 6 in a row. Definitely the last 5 in a row. The Roosters, they've won their last 4 out of 5. So bit of a loss to the Titans 2 weeks ago there, but they are one of the form teams as well in this competition, so that should be a cracker. If I was a tipping man, I would probably say the Sharks because they are playing at home, but don't underestimate the Roosters. As I mentioned before, the Eels, they take on the Titans, 1:45 p.m. on Sunday at Eric Tweedale Stadium, 6th versus 5th. So that should be an interesting game, that one. The last time these two sides played last season, the Titans got a big win, 34 points to 12. 2022, the year that the Eels made the NRLW Grand Final, it was 18 points to 16 to the Titans. So the Titans, they do have the advantage, 2 wins to 1 over Parramatta, but hopefully Parramatta can get the win at their home ground. And the last game, which is on at 6:10 p.m, sees the Knights take on the Broncos. Now this will be after the NRL game between the Knights and the Dolphins, also at McDonald Jones Stadium. So hopefully again, and I know they probably will because they're pretty parochial up there in Newcastle, the fans will stick around for this game as well. This is 2nd versus 3rd. The defending premiers taking on the Broncos. They've played 4 times. The Newcastle Knights, they hold the advantage, 3 wins to 1. The Knights beat the Broncos last year, 30 points to 24. A close game in 2023 as well. They played twice, 22 points to 20. But this game will be really good. As I said, the defending premiers, Jessie Southwell, she came off the bench last week in this game. Maybe more than likely will start in this game, I would like to say. But we'll just have to wait and see after coming back from, I think it was the HIA as well. So she will want to get back into that starting position. But that should be a great game, the Knights and Broncos. And that is round 7 that is coming up in the NRLW. Only a couple more weeks to go before the finals, and obviously the grand final on the same day as the NRL grand final. So I hope you enjoyed that NRLW review for round number 6. some big scores in that game. But if you can watch any of these NRLW games, please do, because they are great fixtures. I know the timings are probably not the best for everybody to watch, but if you can at least watch one, possibly two games, if you're a rugby league fan, then please do, because it's quality game. There's some big hits, there's some great tries being scored, and it'd be great to see some good crowds at these games, and definitely some good TV ratings as well. So if you can, please watch these games. I will hopefully be back next week with Kiana, and we'll review round number 7 and give a quick preview of round number 8. Thank you very much for listening, and go Para!
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast.